On a mid-morning when autumn sunlight gently illuminated the hydrangeas in my garden, I was absorbed in my daily gardening routine. While finding solace in the scent of soil and the colors of falling leaves, I was planning the menu for next week's family dinner. Just as I was considering making pot roast for Michael, a health-conscious salad for Jennifer, and Lily's favorite chocolate chip cookies, my phone rang. "Mrs. Wilson, about your granddaughter Lily." It was the school nurse from Greenwich Academy. She said Lily had suddenly collapsed during class. They had tried repeatedly to contact her parents but couldn't reach them. I hastily pulled off my gardening gloves and jumped into my car. "My name is Patricia Wilson, a 62-year-old former nurse. 3 years ago, I lost my beloved husband Thomas to illness, and now I live alone in a quiet residential area of Greenwich, Connecticut. Our colonial-style house, built in the 1970s, is my treasure trove of memories with my husband. In the well-maintained front yard, the hydrangeas and roses he planted still bloom beautifully. Inside, antique furniture we collected together over the years lines the rooms, and our warm country-style kitchen remains the heart of family gatherings. My hobbies are gardening and cooking. Thanks to my husband's life insurance and pension, I have no financial worries. My son Michael works as a fund manager at a major investment bank in New York. Though ambitious and sometimes a bit showy, I was proud of my accomplished son. He likes driving luxury cars and posting about his elegant lifestyle on social media. I hear he's been busy with work lately, often spending weekends holed up in his home office. His wife Jennifer works as a luxury real estate agent. Beautiful and sociable, she has many social media followers. Her Instagram is filled with daily posts showcasing a perfect life. They live in a newly built modern mansion, with white-themed interiors worthy of magazine features. However, lately, the real estate market downturn has affected her work performance, and she seems to be under stress. Her voice on the phone lacks its former cheerfulness. And then there's Lily, who fell ill today. My 8-year-old granddaughter is a third grader at Greenwich Academy. She's bright and intelligent, especially talented at piano. Last year at her recital, she captivated the audience with a perfect performance of Chopin's waltz. She excels academically and is well regarded by her teachers. She calls me the kindest grandma in the world, such a lovely girl. She sometimes visits my house alone, looking forward to my weekend homemade cookies. Our family maintained a close relationship, meeting 2 to 3 times a month. My son and his wife live in the upscale Belle Haven district, about a 15 minutes drive from my house. However, lately, they've been canceling our regular family dinners more frequently, citing their busy schedules. Last month, they called right before our planned dinner saying an urgent meeting came up, leaving all the food I'd prepared to go to waste. Michael was raised as an only child with great care. My husband and I particularly emphasized education. Our efforts paid off when he graduated with honors from a prestigious university and launched a brilliant career. He met Jennifer in college, and they married 7 years ago. Lily was born as their eagerly awaited first child through planned pregnancy, and they were an ideal family in the beginning. They would go to the local church together on Sundays and enjoy family vacations. Those were happy days. But now, I sense something's wrong. It's like an intuition, a warning bell ringing deep in my chest. My over 30 years of nursing experience was pushing me forward. Working in the pediatric ward, I'd seen children from all sorts of families. I know that even families that appear perfect on the surface can harbor deep darkness. As I drove, I tried contacting my son and his wife again. But still, both calls went to voicemail. They should normally respond immediately to emergency calls from school. I left a message on Michael's phone and tried contacting Jennifer through social media, but received no response. Under the clear autumn sky, my car continued toward Greenwich Academy. Through the tree-lined avenue where leaves were beginning to turn, I could see the brick school building. At that moment, I didn't know that this day would mark a dramatic change in our peaceful daily lives. Passing through Greenwich Academy's main gate, an unusual stillness hung in the air for an autumn morning. Maple leaves just beginning to turn red occasionally danced in the wind. Normally, I would have paused to admire their beauty. But today, each falling leaf felt ominous, like drops of blood. Inside the building, a staff member was waiting. Following her, I'll show you to the nurse's office. My feet naturally moved silently, just as they used to during night shifts in the pediatric ward. From down the hall came the sound of children in class. Though it was an ordinary daily scene, today it felt somehow different. Opening the infirmary door, I saw Lily's small figure on a bed partitioned by white curtains. In the autumn sunlight streaming through the window, her cheeks, usually glowing with health, appeared unusually pale. Lily. When I called out, my granddaughter slowly raised her face. In that moment, my nurse's intuition sharply responded. The fear in Lily's eyes was a familiar kind, the characteristic fearful expression I'd seen many times in abuse cases over my years of experience. Grandma. Lily called my name in a trembling voice. Her thin fingers tightly gripped the hem of my clothes. The gesture held a desperate quality, as if both clinging and trying to convey something. It's all right, Grandma's here now. I placed my hand on Lily's forehead. Though she had a slight fever, it wasn't serious enough to require immediate hospitalization. The school nurse explained that she had been listless all morning, and during third period math class, she suddenly stood up and then collapsed back into her seat. Can I stay at your house tonight? Lily suddenly said this. There was an unusual urgency in her voice. Please don't call Mom and Dad. As Lily pleaded with tears in her eyes, my heart began pounding like an alarm bell. My over 30 years of nursing experience was mobilizing every nerve to sound a warning. This wasn't mere willfulness or seeking attention. What was happening before me was a harbinger of something more serious. After a brief consultation with the school nurse, I decided to let Lily rest at my house today. The nurse agreed when I explained that I would contact her parents and keep a close eye on Lily's condition. In the car, Lily kept staring out the window after fastening her seatbelt. The drive, usually filled with her cheerful stories about school, was wrapped in an unusual silence. Her profile in the side mirror showed a tension unbefitting an 8-year-old child. "Lily, did something happen?" I gently asked at a red light. But Lily just shook her head and wouldn't open her mouth. Instead, she showed a gesture of holding my bag on the passenger seat more tightly. Even after arriving at my house, Lily's behavior didn't change. Usually, she would run into the kitchen and open her favorite cookie jar, but today she just sat curled up on the living room sofa, hugging her knees. When I offered her warm cocoa, Lily whispered a small, "Thank you." However, she barely touched even this favorite drink. Dinner was the same. Though I prepared her favorites, chicken soup and grilled cheese sandwich, she only took a few bites before putting down her utensils. During this time, I kept trying to call my son and his wife. But still no answer from either of them. Even my social media messages remained unread. I called Michael's company, but they only said he was out. Jennifer's real estate office gave the same response. As day gradually turned to night, the window outside was enveloped in autumn darkness. Though the house temperature was comfortable, Lily occasionally shivered. As bedtime approached, she was extremely afraid of going to her bedroom alone. "Can I sleep with you, Grandma?" When Lily asked in a small voice, I nodded without hesitation. Even after getting into bed, she fell asleep clinging to my arm. Her small body continued to tremble occasionally even in sleep. Moonlight streaming through the window gently illuminated Lily's cheek. Her expression couldn't be called peaceful even in sleep. She occasionally furrowed her brow, showing gestures of fear. As I gently stroked her hair, I firmly resolved to contact her parents tomorrow. The sound of autumn wind rattling the windows seemed to carry some ominous premonition. Unable to sleep, I continued holding my granddaughter in the darkness. In the misty bedroom, I quietly awakened. Lily, sleeping in my arms, finally showed a peaceful expression. Last night's anxious look had disappeared, leaving just an 8-year-old girl sleeping peacefully. Outside the window, birdsong announced the arrival of a new morning. The clock showed 7 a.m. I got up as quietly as possible and headed to the kitchen. I decided to make Lily's favorite pancakes this morning. She loved waking up to the smell of maple syrup. While preparing breakfast in the kitchen, I was contemplating how to get in touch with my son and his wife today. Just as I started melting butter in the pan, the doorbell rang. It was 8 a.m., too early for any neighbors. Peeking through the edge of the curtain, I saw two unfamiliar men standing there. In suits, with badges gleaming in their breast pockets. I instinctively knew they were police officers. Opening the door, they politely showed their police badges. After introducing themselves as Detective Brown and Detective Johnson from Greenwich Police, the older one opened his mouth with gravity. "Mrs. Wilson, we're here to talk to you. Is your granddaughter Lily here now?" I felt an unusual weight in his tone. When I answered yes, she's sleeping upstairs, the two exchanged glances. The younger detective began speaking carefully, choosing his words. "Actually, about your son and his wife." The words that followed shook my world to its foundation. Michael had embezzled company funds, they said. An astronomical sum of about $5 million. And last night, he had attempted to flee the country. However, the attempt failed, and forged passports were seized at the airport. Evidence of fraudulent financial transactions was discovered at their home, and most heartbreaking of all, evidence indicating abuse of Lily was found. They were detained at the international airport last night. They're currently being questioned at the police facility. The detective's words seemed to come from far away. As I sat down on the living room sofa, unable to move, the detectives continued explaining the situation. Michael had begun embezzling company funds little by little 2 years ago. The luxury car, newly built mansion, flashy lifestyle, it was all built on stolen money. Jennifer was an accomplice. She had been involved in money laundering through fake real estate transactions. However, last week, internal auditing discovered the fraud. Cash hidden as escape funds and multiple forged passports were found. And then, even more shocking evidence discovered during the house search. Traces of domestic violence, photos indicating abuse, security camera footage. At the detective's words, Lily's behavior yesterday flashed through my mind like a slideshow. Her unusual fear, trembling body, gestures of fear, it all connected. Actually, we'd received reports from neighbors. They heard shouting and a child crying in the middle of the night. At that moment, there was a small sound from upstairs. Turning around, Lily was standing at the top of the stairs. Still in her pajamas, clinging to the handrail, with anxiety in her large eyes. "Lily, it's okay. Come here." Fighting to control my trembling voice, I gently extended my hand. Lily slowly descended the stairs and flew into my arms. Her small body began trembling again. The detectives began explaining the upcoming procedures. Child Protective Services would be involved, temporary protection would be needed, and there were legal custody issues to address. Each word pressed heavily as reality. Outside the window, the peaceful autumn morning continued. The sweet smell of maple syrup still lingered in the kitchen. However, I realized our world would never be the same again. After the detectives left, I held Lily tightly. Her hair carried the familiar sweet shampoo scent. Perhaps hidden in that scent were truths I hadn't noticed, or hadn't wanted to notice. "Lily, it's okay now. Grandma will definitely protect you." At those words, Lily clung to me even more tightly. In that gesture, I felt a mix of past fears and anxieties, along with new hope. The living room clock quietly ticked away. Outside the window, a single autumn leaf slowly danced down. It seemed to announce the beginning of our new life. However, this wasn't the end, but just the beginning. The truth awaiting us was even deeper and more cruel. About 2 weeks later, Lily and I were heading to a child psychologist's office. A small white building in Greenwich's quiet residential area. Colorful flowers bloomed all around, as if gently welcoming visitors. "Mrs. Wilson, Lily, we've been waiting for you." Dr. Sarah Martinez, who greeted us with a warm smile, was a child psychologist in her mid-40s specializing in abuse care. At first, Lily strongly resisted counseling. However, thanks to Dr. Martinez's gentle personality, she was slowly beginning to open up. Today, Lily said she wants to talk herself. At Dr. Martinez's words, I caught my breath. In previous sessions, Lily had hardly opened her mouth. Though she would occasionally fall silent with slight tears in her eyes, she had never volunteered to speak about anything. Soft sunlight streamed into the space called the playroom. Bright pictures drawn by children decorated the walls, and soft carpet covered the floor. Lily sat in a small chair in front of shelves neatly arranged with toys and picture books. Dad and Mom. Lily's voice was thin and trembling. I instinctively reached out, but Dr. Martinez lightly shook her head to stop me. Lily needed to start talking on her own. Dad and Mom always fought about money. I could hear loud voices at night. They'd get angry if I was awake. I wasn't allowed to leave my room. Lily's confession progressed slowly but surely. Their parents' debt. Michael's gambling addiction. Jennifer's wasteful spending. Behind their life plastered with pride and vanity, their relationship had been steadily crumbling. When I cried, Lily's voice broke off. Dr. Martinez nodded gently, respecting Lily's pace. Mom always locked me in the closet. It was dark and scary, but I wasn't allowed to make a sound. At that moment, something shattered into pieces in my heart. It felt like the reason I had desperately maintained suddenly collapsed. My chest ached hot, and my vision blurred. They said worse things would happen if I told anyone. Lily's confession continued. Violence from her parents. Psychological abuse. And above all, the daily battle with the fear of not being able to tell anyone. But I thought, with Grandma. Lily looked at me for the first time. Though shadows of fear remained in her eyes, there was also a faint light of hope. I knew I'd be safe at your house. That's why, that day, Lily had deliberately acted like she collapsed. She knew I would be called if she was taken to the nurse's office. After overhearing her parents planning their escape, she decided she couldn't wait any longer. An 8-year-old girl's desperate strategy to protect her own life. That fact nearly tore my heart apart. After the session, Dr. Martinez gave me a detailed explanation. Lily's emotional wounds are deep. However, the fact that she started talking on her own is significant progress. The first step toward recovery had definitely begun. The following weeks were like sailing through a storm. My son and his wife's trial. Media coverage. Legal procedures regarding custody. However, there were many people supporting us. Neighbors quietly brought homemade meals. The church community warmly embraced us. Lily's homeroom teacher supported her school life with special consideration. 2 months later, the initial judicial decision was made. Michael and Jennifer's crimes were clear, and they were each sentenced to prison terms. Their parental rights were completely revoked, and I was granted legal guardianship of Lily. A new life began taking shape little by little. I renovated a room in my house to Lily's taste. Light pink wallpaper. Star-shaped lights. Her favorite stuffed animals. Everything began with creating a space where she could sleep peacefully. As Christmas approached, Lily sat at the piano for the first time in a while. Chopin's Waltz. Though the sound was slightly different from before, it definitely contained hope. Outside the window, the first snow began falling quietly. "Grandma, listen to this." Lily's voice was slowly regaining its former brightness. As the piano notes filled the air, I smiled quietly. These 2 months had been the most grueling trial of our lives. But at the same time, it was a period when new bonds were born and deepened. An 8-year-old girl living strongly despite her wounds, and a 62-year-old former nurse who found a new mission in the final chapter of her life. Perhaps our story is just beginning here. A journey to overcome sadness and find new happiness. It won't be an easy path. But I know we can move forward, step by step, with definite hope. The soft light of dusk fell on Lily's profile as she stood by the window. Looking at her, I made a quiet vow. I would dedicate the rest of my life to protecting this child's happiness. Outside, the snow was falling harder. The pure white snow seemed to gently wrap our past wounds and show us the path to a new future.